Hey family, Sharif Aman here,
Jenna Barbosa.
and this is Love Speak Revolution.
Love meets you where you're at.
Yes, it does.
Yes. Welcome back, you guys. We're so excited to be able to have you here with us. Mission of this podcast really is to just revolutionize the idea that you have to have it all together to experience Jesus's love, no matter if you're a believer or not.
Yeah.
So we love just being able to spend time with you and you really just coming into our conversations, and just so grateful for you. We have an amazing opportunity today to sit with our friend Craig McIntyre.
Yes.
And I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too.
So excited.
Me too.
Happy to be here.
Craig, thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Yes. So Craig, you guys, is a new friend for me.
Yeah.
And I met him through Sharif, through mutual friends up here in Portland, and just really fell in love with his wife, Wayna, and we just were hanging out, and then Craig came along, and Craig and I got to know each other a little bit more and have just chit-chatted, and so it's been a really big pleasure just meeting both of them.
Yeah.
And so Craig is a professional musician. He is a drummer, a session drummer.
I hit things for a living.
He hit things for a living.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Cheaper than therapy.
Yeah.
Cheaper than therapy, yes. You know, that is music.
It makes
therapy.
it sound
I have
good
that
when he
too,
hits
yeah.
it. It sounds good when he hits it.
Yeah, it does. That's the
Takes
difference.
years though.
Right. Yes. Good segue. Years. You've been doing this for how many years as a drummer, just professionally?
Professionally or just playing?
Well, even just playing.
40 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so great.
Yeah.
Talk about honing a craft, right? Just
Yeah.
starting out as a passion and then moving into the professional space. So professionally, you've worked for many artists. I love how you said it earlier. You said, I take my passion and I attach it to a group for a minute or for a long minute. I can't remember how you said it, but it was really fun.
And it turns long term.
And it turns long term, yeah. But yeah, so session drummer, you've done gigs, just other things that he's done podcasts and things about drumming. Lots of knowledge for any of you drummers out there. But also just currently you are touring this year with
Yep.
the Goo Goo Dolls.
The Goo Goo Dolls, who I've been with, 9, almost 10 years.
Right.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
awesome. So fun. And you were just telling me about how you just get to travel and you guys are going across seas to be able to do a fun show and then across the country. So check him out. Coming to a city near you guys.
Definitely living the dream. He
yeah,
he is
fun.
He is the thing that we musicians. That's what we aspire to be. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's always up and down, but
Yeah,
you gotta
absolutely.
enjoy the victory as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's a really good segue, Sharif, because that's really the premise of our show and why we're wanting Craig to be on, because I've gotten to know him outside of the music realm and really just getting to know him and his wife and seeing that there's so many other facets to
Absolutely.
life other than your passion, right? And your passion's amazing and it's fun. You say a lot of victories. But what we really want to talk today about is, yes, some of the music stuff that you want to bring in, but also just kind of three-dimensional. Like, what are the other areas of your life that you've seen how music can weave in and out of, and some of the hardships, some of the really great things, and just kind of have like a real talk. That's our podcast, right? It's just real talk
Yeah.
where we're at.
You know, a lot of people think like kind of what we do is they only see like this, the stage, and they're just like, oh, what a life. But they truly don't understand like what it took to get there. They don't understand, like you were saying, like the ebb and flows, the ups and downs.
Sacrifices.
They don't understand, the sacrifices. They don't understand, like, being out on the road is awesome, but there's a lot of challenges that come with that, like dealing, it's like a business and touring and people getting things wrong and, just so much can go on. And people don't recognize that. They just think it's like this plush like thing, but it is a sacrifice. It's actually literally a sacrifice to be it's fun, it's awesome, like the harvest is amazing. So we would definitely love to talk about that too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's so good. So kind of just to kick it off, why don't you just experience or tell us a little bit about your experience just with the passion of it and why it's something that you even want to sacrifice for? Because I think that's a lot of times in life. We just can kind of count the cost and be like, well, it's just not really worth it. But that's when people just kind of die slowly inside because they're not living out their passions, because it is a balance. But talk about that a little bit, if you would, just a little bit of balancing that passion, what drives you to music, and then why it's worth the cost of all the other sacrifice.
Well, yeah, I'll go way back.
Yeah.
And like I was a music fan first. A lot of kids, might they might have parents that are like, okay, we want you to play this sport, and then you're going to go to this practice and this practice. And some of that might be music. A lot of kids just get taught piano or violin like right away or something, even if the kid doesn't want to do it.
Right.
And I was a music fan first.
Yeah.
Like I was a consumer of music and had an older brother, and we were going to see concerts as early as I was 8 years old, so music there was a love for it.
Yeah.
There was a real love for it. And I'm a fan way more than I'm a participant, even though it is what I do for a living. Right. And I think that's really important. Yeah. That part. So after that, they bought a drum for my brother when I was about 5. He never played it, just a snare drum. Yeah. And it sat around the house for years. And then eventually, after getting into music and seeing like a drummer on stage and the physicality and the look of it, I started just banging on that snare drum by itself. Yeah. And then adding boxes and coffee cans to build a drum kit.
I love that.
So, but at the same time, I was hardcore into soccer. I was hardcore into BMX, wanted to be a professional BMXer, skateboarding. And my brother, could have gone pro skateboarding. Okay. We lived in Arizona at the time, so we had this kind of West Coast mentality. And so drums were like just one of those things. But it wasn't super serious. Yeah. But the love of music that was equal to everything. I would spend just as much time listening to music as I would riding my bike, or it all became this thing. And then what kind of happened was like a process of elimination that led to my passion. Yeah. So we left Arizona when I was about maybe 11 and moved to the Boston area. And which technically I was born in. That's a long story, but I was about 3, and my dad had a job that moved him out to Phoenix. Okay. So a lot of people think I'm this Boston guy, but I lived a long time in Arizona. And so he got his old job back. So when we moved there, I didn't remember anything. I moved when I was 3. So now I'm going back there at like 10 or 11. And so it's snowing out. I don't do snow. I don't ski. I don't, so, and then I didn't have any friends when I moved there, and the friends I did have were all out skating and, skiing. So I had a lot of solitary time that first year or two that I moved to Boston. And that's when they bought me a real drum set.
Oh, wow.
So, and then like I did still play sports when I got there, but that's when the passion really came out. So 11, 12 years old, like 13, where I was really serious about it and putting in, every musician has those 10 hours a day they're playing, both my parents always worked. So I'd come home from school and I would have that like 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock window before they came home.
Right.
So I could just rock the house, and my parents traveled a lot too. And my dad had business trips. So, there was many, like I could, I made a racket, I really, really spent those, especially those winter months, really listening to records and just, taking a few lessons and getting better at drums. So it just became drums. Really was it, it was really like the thing. And it started and then I joined bands, I was playing in bars when I was 14 but still on the football team. And then learning that I wasn't going to be the star quarterback and my hands were getting mangled and I got to get up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. And I've been out on Friday playing with people who are 10 years older than me. And I'm like, so I kind of gave up all that stuff. So it was that elimination kind of thing. Yeah. The BMX bike was already sold and gone away because it wasn't cool to ride your bike by the time you're 15. You're driving around with people that have cars that are a couple years. there was nowhere to skateboard in Massachusetts. There was no sidewalks or anything, so it would really just all that happened. So I was interested in a lot of things. A lot of people just say, oh, you must have been obsessed with your instrument from as a little kid. No, it was amongst, 4 or 5 obsessions. Yeah. And, so I was pretty balanced in what I did. Always had a lot of friends and, always, and then, being a teenager and growing up, always had relationships. I wasn't, I always call myself a C student, because there's some really freaky musicians out there, but a lot of them have, made major sacrifices, just on a social level. Yeah. And that's how they got so good, though. But then they didn't maybe cultivate good relationships with people.
Oh, that's key. Yeah.
So I was always pretty balanced. I was always like, a relatively popular kid. And, and like I said, played sports and had a good balance. I hung out with everybody. I was always the mediator, these kids didn't like each other. I was, hey man, that guy's cool, and hang out with him. And so I feel pretty lucky in that way.
I love that.
Yeah, but great. Yeah, but drumming took over. I mean, by 15 especially, I was starting to get stars in my eyes.
Yeah.
A very lucrative career, very lucrative. And so I think that what I hear, 2 things is balance and time.
Yeah.
Is really giving you a strong platform, is balance with other areas of life, as well as just time and honing and not going all in. And I think that's where a lot of times with musicians or people who are like, oh, I want a passion, they feel like they have to like scuba dive like right away.
Yeah.
And kind of dive super deep or it's not going to work. You know what I mean? And they kind of burn out real fast.
Yeah.
And so having that slow burn, I think, is a really underrated aspect of kind of approaching our passions.
A lot of people, I think the most important thing that I was hearing was relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because a lot of artists can be so amazing. Being in LA or New York, it doesn't matter how talented you are. If you don't have that relationship, you're still going to be behind. You have to have it's not about talent. It's about that relationship.
Yeah.
Really. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Like when you were saying you were a C just because you worked hard, but then you balance those relationships as well. And that's like A to me, man.
Yeah.
Because it's really seriously, you don't have those relationships and you're just not gonna.
Yeah.
How do they know who you are? You can be so brilliant, but not have the relationships.
Yeah.
Totally, man. That's amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, and there was I say Boston, and I eventually lived in Boston, but I really grew up in a city called Worcester, Massachusetts, which is just outside of Boston. Mm-hmm. But it's the kind of place that never let you get too big for your boots, and I was always, there was enough encouragement there, but there was also, and even Boston in general too, there's a lot of encouragement there. They have great music colleges there. So there's talent that's as good as anywhere in the world, but there's still a blue collar thing. There's still hey, there's no rock star stuff here,
wow,
everybody's, really just trying to be down to earth and stuff like that. So there was a lot of checking your thing at the door. There. And there would be some people that would go way too much that way, and they would be so doubtful.
Yeah.
They would be so doubtful that it's you're never going to do anything and stuff. So you had a lot of those voices going on in your head, back and forth. So you had the people that would push you, and then the people that would doubt you, and then the people that would kind of say, whatever. Oh, you're a musician? What do you really do?
Yeah.
There was a lot of that stuff. Or, I remember being at a party with a guitar player friend of mine, and we were already, making money, playing music full time and stuff like that. And it was some Christmas party, and one of the neighbors, walks up to my friend and goes, "Oh, so what do you do?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm a musician. I play guitar and stuff like that." And she goes, "Yeah, my son doesn't know what he wants to do yet either." And he's like, "Mom, never have that woman come to the house again." It was so insulting, So, there's a lot of people that'll keep things in check for you.
Yeah.
And I was around all of that, good and bad, and in the middle and lukewarm kind of stuff. So I always, I kept a day job, till I was 24 or something like that, or because like I knew like it was very important. Like I skipped college. So that was bit of a blow to my dad, because my dad's like a 2 PhD kind of dude, and he's just a bookworm, and my brother had dropped out of college, and so I didn't want to let them down. Like I respected that they gave me the freedom, and they didn't give me too hard of a time for that. But I didn't want to be the guy who didn't go to college, which is a disappointment. I wanted to kind of overcompensate with keeping my stuff together, and showing that I could be responsible. So I did stuff on the side as long as I could until I just couldn't do it anymore. And I had to go full-time music, where either financially, it was all about health insurance. It was all about, and I still pay for my own to this day, but I always knew like, I just wanted to keep that stuff in check.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I moved out when I was like 19. So I didn't want to be the kind of person that moved home at 25 and then 27, or was borrowing money from my folks. And I've got wonderful parents, and just their support has felt like they've given me money over the years. It's just having all that stuff. So I didn't want to be a cliche, of like, oh, here, you're just, kid. you're the dropout, and you do music as an escapist kind of thing, or just it was never about that for me. I've always tried to, treat it like a real job, and pay my bills on time kind of thing, and not like drift away from responsibility, by any means. Because I grew up around just, my friends were construction workers, and my friends outside of the music business, and a lot of my musician friends were people that had their own painting company or something like that, So it was very, so I didn't have, it wasn't like I went to, never worked a day job. Some people, then they go to a music college, and then they move right to LA, and some of them get lucky. And I wasn't that way. I'd put in like 10 years of, roughing it out, and then also working day jobs and all this stuff. So by the time I got to LA, I was already 30 or something. So I had already had those kind of real years behind me of the ups and downs. So when I got to LA, it was kind of like, okay, I think I've built up enough stuff, and I'm bringing, when I got to LA, it was scary because I felt brand new. But then somebody said to me, hey, no matter where you go, you bring that stuff with you.
That's good.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can walk into a new city and say, check me out, like I got all this experience. But that'll just automatically, they'll feel it.
Yeah.
You don't have to show them your resume.
Exactly.
But they'll just know. So there is a bit of starting over, but like you're not really starting over.
Exactly.
You have 10, 20 years of experience behind you whenever you move somewhere different at whatever age. And I learned that.
I think, listening to you, I'm just thinking about like how much a lot of the, reality TV singing competitions and music competitions, YouTube, kind of Insta famous, microwave type of careers are being born in the last couple decades. And I think that gives a lot of upcoming artists, or really anything in any type of public forum career, a little bit of some disillusionment, because it's very much like I can get the benefits without putting in a lot of the due diligence, that you're really saying. Like you had a few, you said like what, 30 years, like by the time you had 20 to 30 years of just really figuring out what that is and figuring yourself out and getting that experience and, putting the grind. And a lot of, I think the big artists of the day, we really see that, like they came from, from vinyl records. They were hitting the street and doing all the things. They didn't have the internet like we do today to really push that publicity, And so I think that like a lot of people can get really stuck in having this beautiful passion to want to do a gifting in them, but kind of feeling them like caught between the rock and a hard place of that quick kind of get there quick, but they don't want to put the work in to get there.
Yeah.
What would be like your thoughts on that, or even just advice to seeing the value in slow burn and putting in that work?
Right. Like kind of playing the long game kind of thing.
Long game.
That's a question that, like other podcasts that I do, it comes up all the time, that same question. And it's kind of one of those things you can kind of only answer from your own perspective, and you don't know if that's going to work. Now, when I moved to LA, it was the first year of American Idol, which is funny you bring that up.
Yeah.
Or maybe it started the next year. So, I moved late 2001. I think American Idol was 2002 or something like that. So that was kind of strange because that was a whole new thing. And back then we just looked at it like a talent show, and it didn't really mean anything. And the fact that stuff still happens today, and then those legacy artists, or even current artists, Katy Perry and stuff like that, they're making careers as being judges. For this stuff, and the shows are more about them than it's about the artist. I know The Voice. I don't know how long The Voice has been out, maybe 13 years or something, 15 years. I don't think if you add up all those artists together, I don't think it even equates to 100,000 albums being sold.
Yeah.
So it's TV.
Yeah.
It's TV. It's not real life. And there's been some really talented people come out of it.
Right.
But for that to be the route to go, like you said, it seems to see these people have a bad night singing and then they cry and think like their whole career's over, that stinks. But I don't relate to that at all.
Yeah.
Like I don't like, so I could only say, who cares? Like, don't stand in a line with 400 other people to tell you that you're not good enough.
Yeah. That doesn't determine.
Yeah. To have J-Lo tell you you're not good enough and she lip syncs everything, like it doesn't mean anything, And so I can just say, if you really love it, you're going to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
You're going to do anything it takes. But what is different about today, there's either a different or there's not as much incentive. And if I was younger and somebody said, this is great what you do, but there's no money in it, I really think back about that. I'm like, I wonder if I would have quit. But then I would have quit really early if somebody told me that. Like I would have quit at 15 if somebody said, and that's always the joke. As you get older and you might make a few bucks doing it, and then there might be somebody accuses you like, oh, you only in it for the money? And I'm like, if I was only in it for the money, I would have quit a long time ago. Right. So you should know in those early years that this is just something you're going to do, whether you need to do something else to supplement. Right. Because I know so many people that have like quit. And then 10 years later, they're like, yeah, I bought a new guitar. I'm getting back into this. And I'm like, well, why did you ever get out of it? Yeah. Like, you could have just kept it going. It's almost like when somebody wants to sell too many things because they can't pay the rent. And it's like, why don't you just get another job instead of selling stuff? Because you're going to need to buy that stuff back. Yeah. And I feel the same way with your bandwidth of like wanting to still play music on any level whatsoever. Yeah. So I can only recognize people who just love it, because as I started off in the beginning saying this, I loved music. Right. That still is a more important thing than playing the drums. That's still more important than making money at it. Yeah. It just is. It's just, it's just, I don't don't want to become an actor. I don't want to, like, I don't have all these side hustles. Sometimes I wish I did, you know, like, you know, but so I am caught in that weird way of like, okay, you got to have this tunnel vision and just go for it and just no matter what. But I'm also like a realist at the same time.
Yeah.
And I can see how people do other things, but is there still that thing? Like there's a student of mine that he wanted to meet me for coffee a couple weeks ago, and he's just coming up, he's just saying all these excuses about like if he wants to keep pursuing it or not pursuing it, or and I'm just like, and he's saying, well, but I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and I'm like, look, no matter what, wake up in the morning and say, I'm a drummer.
Right.
No matter what. Even if you're in the car on the way to do a non-drumming thing to make some money, but you're still a drummer.
Yeah.
You know, when I worked in a factory for years, stuff like that. And like, I know some of my bandmates would always joke, and because at lunch I'd be calling them and they're like, you got rock fever, don't you? He goes, it's about that time.
Yeah.
You know, like so early in the morning I could handle just, you know, that stuff. But around noon, it's like, I want to play. I want to listen to music. I want to play with my band.
Yeah.
You know, you want to get in that thing. So you learn how much you can balance or you can't balance, you know, that kind of thing. So, or when I would help, you know, I'd help other musicians who had painting businesses or construction business, you know, like, can I hire you, you know, to carry some, you know, make deliveries for me and all that stuff. And then we'd always joke about that. We'd be like, yep. Yeah, we're about halfway through the day, and like this is when we just want to be musicians, and we want to like, you know. So you just kind of learn that stuff, and obviously you got to tough through it sometimes if there is nothing there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, you know, it's if you're gonna do it, you know.
I feel like I can totally relate to what you're saying, because that's where I came from too. Just I had this passion, knew I was going to do it, but I was a realist as well, you know. And I worked hard, and I know there was this development process, this discipling that kind of happened in our world, where, you know, we did the thing, we went and did the shows, and then we went and did the work, but that was kind of developing us to be these artists, to where like we shatter but we don't. You know what I'm saying? Like when if the rejection happens, right? Or, you know, all of these things happen. Now it's so different because everybody gets a trophy, right? Like, you know, everybody, well, I'm this because I have, you know, 20,000 followers, but that doesn't mean anything, like you were saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. Like you wait in line and then you know, Simon tells you, you know, you're terrible and you quit. Like, no, that's not, have you experienced playing in a room with people who are talking over you and don't think and I mean, that was the whole development process.
Yeah.
It was showing you said it, like you wake up every morning, this is what I am. I'm a singer, I'm a guitar player, I'm a drummer, despite what happens. And I think, I don't know, maybe there's not an understanding, like the development process is just all but dissipated when everybody's just like, I'm a rock star, I am this is what I am. And you know, it's like, but it's like they're all standing on sand. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I feel like, but then again, you don't want to bash, you know, it's just because it changes, you know, and then like the young people are kind of making it what it is, but I just kind of feel like I agree with what you're saying. We have all these artists, we have even the ones that are touring and making all the money. It's just like there's a lot missing. The artistry is missing, like the true understanding what it means to be, you know, a leader, like just, you know, musicianship. I mean, talent is just one side of it, and I feel like we're just in this rush of like, oh, I'm talented, I'm a rock star.
Right.
You know, and you know, it's like,
well, even that term,
right?
You know, even that term is like, you know, a baby's 3 years old and he shoots a basket, and they go, my son's a rock star. Yeah, you know, it's like, really, you know, like, you know, and there's an energy drink called Rockstar, you know, that you drink to get your exams.
Well put,
done,
Greg.
You know?
Well put.
So you know, it's kind of like everything gets watered down.
Right.
Over time.
Well put.
And so I agree. You know, there's a couple things that made me think, and this all happened in the same day, but I got asked to do, I've done a few of them, but a master class at Musicians Institution in LA. And so it was just a kind of talk about your experience and typical thing. And one kid was there, and now I'm doing it for drummers,
right?
You know, and then I made some like kind of joke about, like, it was when Justin Bieber was so big that everybody was sick of him and stuff like that, or maybe didn't really see like the real talent,
right?
That he is. It was just like, oh, that's just the cheesy pop thing, and who really wants to do that? That's like kiddie music or something, And I just made some, not sarcastic or anything like that, but I didn't think anybody would be interested in Justin Bieber. It seemed like these guys want to play either heavy jazz or they want to get good pop gigs or whatever. So this kid came up to me later in the class, and he's like, and he was super nice, and he's just like, hey man, just letting you know, like, those beats on those, even though it's not real drummers, those beats on those Justin Bieber records, like, I play drums to those all the time, and there's some really cool patterns and stuff like that. And I was just completely humbled, and I was just like, yeah, man, like, I don't know his world. I didn't grow up listening to that. I'm older than this kid, and who's for me to say that, there's probably amazing stuff on that stuff. I just haven't spent the time because the celebrity of the artist outshined everything.
Right.
So that story comes up as far as like kind of going back to how I can relate to inspiring somebody else to do what they do. Because somebody like that was finding inspiration from different points. I can't say like, yeah, man, you just got to listen to Zeppelin, you'll be fine. Because that's usually where my head's at, but, and so that's one thing. But another thing that happened at that same class was there was this woman there, but she seemed kind of a bit older, maybe like late 30s. And then there's all these like 18-year-old kids and 19-year-old kids in the class. And she's kind of in the back, and she starts asking me a bunch of questions, but they were like going to school questions. And I'm like, it doesn't seem like she's a student. Definitely doesn't seem like she's a musician, let alone a drummer. And those can be two different things.
Right.
But
that's right.
But I just thought it was weird, and she's just asking me all these questions. She starts asking me about the college, starts asking me about if you don't make it a couple years after you graduate, like, is it worth doing? And then all of a sudden, I start figuring out her son's in the front row, she's in the back.
Whoa.
I mean, talk about a mama's boy, right? Or I think he was embarrassed by the whole thing.
Yeah.
She insisted, so she stood in the back, but she asked all the questions. And she's like, and I figured out, she's like, well, that's my son there. And like, if he goes to school, because they were like interviewing the school. I'm giving a master class, but I'm not a guidance counselor. Right. I didn't even go to music college, Right. I just have a resume. That's why they call me.
Right.
I'm just kind of implanted there. And they're asking me all these questions like, if my son doesn't, make it, those kind of questions. Wow. If my son doesn't make it. So she's sitting there, she's already worried about the price tag.
Right.
And, I had a show that night at Hotel Cafe right down the street. And she said, we really want to come see your show and stuff like that. And then that's when I kind of dropped the truth bombs on her after that, because she wanted to talk to me. Even like they followed me to a gig that night, And I just said, either he wants to do it or he doesn't. Like, if you're going to measure this on success, and especially 2 years after college,
come on,
I said he might be so good he'll drop out of college and then get on a tour.
Right.
Who knows? But it was one of the most awkward situations.
Yeah.
So it gets so extreme that other way that how do you give advice to some people? Because that could be in any profession they'd want to do.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's the issue. That's so amazing that you just said that. That they think that what we do is it's like we can't help the fact that we love what we do, but just because we love something that you sat in your living room with, you don't really understand how powerful music is everywhere. It's even at your job. Without music, this world would be, it's powerful. So like, she's not understanding that they don't think of it as the stereotypical doctor, lawyer, construction worker, you know, working in a restaurant, server, like we're just a hobby. We're just that thing that you do when you try to figure out what you want to do. And that's just amazing, like how they don't get it. The kid gets it. He's just trying to figure it out because he has this fire in him. That, and you know, I grew up with that. My parents at first weren't. We had fights over and over and over again. There's no money in it. You're not going to survive. And for me, it was like, it's in my blood. I don't know what else to do. You could give me multiple millions of dollars to sit behind a desk and do something else, and I can't do it.
Exactly.
So I think like it's crazy to like that. They think I think it's the arts. It's not just about music. It's the arts, period. You're a writer, you're something, and then this pushback comes. Like, oh, well, like, what if this? Like, you're so right. Like, it's just like anything else. If he or she wants to do it, support him. You don't know, like, you know, what's going to happen. But I tell you what, if they do the safe thing, they're not going to be happy. And you're right. 20 years later, they're going to be like, hey, you know, you wasted 20 years. I got this guitar. You know, or I got, you know, I'm getting back, I'm getting into writing, and I was like, so crazy.
Well, what you said, I think was so powerful. You said they measure it, if you measure it by success, like when you said that to the lady, like if you measure the success by that, like so many people, and kind of combining what you were saying too, perspective is so everything. Because if you view success as multi-million dollars, or, you know, a solid, like you have a gig every single week that you can count on, and, you know, like those type of things of stability and structure, that's a big part of what I think loses that entrepreneurial passion spirit. That the big great things in our nation are built from that spirit, not an employee spirit. Like, not that being an employee was wrong. Don't hear me say that when I say that, but just that, like, I'm just going to be stuck with comfort and security that I can count on and not have to risk or sacrifice or put the time in and slow burn and really see what I'm made of. Like, because that's what I really hear you guys both saying in your careers. The resiliency of the day-to-day, year-to-year, still supplementing when needed, but never letting that passion in you die. But let that be the thing that really propels you even forward. That's success. I think resiliency is success. And so when you can be resilient with your passions and not let that big part of you die off because it's not comfortable, or it's not safe, or it's not secure and predictable, y'all are the team. Like that's the spirit that changes the landscape of our nation, of our economy, of our relationships, of history. Like those are the spirits that we see that have molded life. And so I think a lot of people get really stuck in measuring success as something that is safe and predictable.
And financial. I think all that stuff is just the fruit of the root system. Success is like, I think it's when you're alone in your room and you've honed your craft for 10, 15 years, and, or you're doing the job to supplement the stuff. Are you getting better at drums? Is it still a passion for you? Those little like success for us is like the record deal. You know, we've been programmed to think that it's the record deal or it's the big tour. No, that's cool. But success is like, I love doing this and I'm going to keep doing it, and you're getting better at it, or you're making achievements. I think the perception and the programming is grossly distorted. For all things, business, everything. When success,
the prize is in the work.
Right. Man, that's so good.
Put that on a t-shirt.
There's no gold at the end of the rainbow.
Right.
The prize is in the work.
There it is, man.
It's character building.
Yeah.
character, who you are when no one's looking,
you
why you do what you want to do.
Do you
I
feel?
mean, I could use some money now because I've built enough character over the years. But if you gave it to me at a young age,
right.
then I would have been one of, it wouldn't have worked out.
Right.
I would have gotten lost.
Yeah.
Do you see that? Do you think that looking at like music over the past 8 years, like that's been really lost, like the prizes in the work?
Yeah, I think so. At the same time, I think because it got so extreme that you do have those people that have kind of just retreated to like, I got to go back to that same passion we all had as kids, because they see less incentive, or they get jaded with the business, and or they just know that there's something fleeting going on, whether it's the interest in live music, or there's so many other distractions now with social media and video game or whatever, so they really do say like, I want to play what I love, and so I see some of that happening too. So that there's something cool about that, where they're not going to drink the Kool-Aid anymore. They're not going to, because there's, some people are in a worse place if they get a record deal, and then there's a lot of DIY stuff today and stuff like that. So people are kind of figuring out something that works for them. And I think because of that, we'll still have amazing artists.
Yeah,
come out of it
absolutely.
and stuff like that. But I think that whole thing is, and by the time I moved to LA, it was early 30s. So I had a lot of experience behind me. I was I wouldn't use the word jaded, but I was just kind of suspect enough, not to see the dangling carrots,
right?
But you get to LA and it's still Tinseltown, and it's still like, wow, and I'm still
Starry eyes again.
getting excited about, every encounter was something that could lead to something else. And I still got swept up in that stuff, I don't know if, a 21-year-old is getting swept up the same way.
Yeah.
Because I got swept up in it because of the connections I was making. Like we're gonna go to this party, and it's gonna be these people here, and there's gonna be a record guy there, or we're doing a showcase here, and there was always like these carrots being dangled, and you got excited, and you were building, your bubble was getting bigger with your network, and all these things were kind of connecting. I don't know if that exists as much. Yeah. And there's a solitary thing that, and people are building up their brand on Instagram or something like that. Well, I've done way more things that I wouldn't put on Instagram than I would.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know if kids have that perspective anymore. Like, I'm just going to go and do a bunch of stuff that I'm not going to do the humble brag about.
Right.
Do they just have to do it? It would be a nightmare. Like, these kids are filming themselves practicing in their bedroom. That sounds like a nightmare for me, especially back then. I don't want anybody to see me practicing, or I don't want this to be, I want to be that practice. I want to make sure I'm playing with people and like I'm working that stuff out. And even then I was making mistakes. And then, so I don't know if they have that difference of that thing, like, wow, I mean, there was some stuff I figured out in my bedroom at 15, and it was kind of impressive, but maybe 2 kids in the neighborhood came over and saw me do it, but to like post that stuff.
It's almost like a false sense of security in your craft or in your identity, even, because you're getting a lot of people watching online, or you're getting a lot of people liking. And so it's this false sense of confidence. But the competency really is built up internally with people and in the trial and error. And I'm sure you've had many times of playing in a set and you're like, oh man, I was all over the place. Like, and you're like, lesson learned, like fix that, do this, like learn that doesn't work there, because you had that sandpaper of relationship. In community, in the real actions where you're not just isolated and a controlled variable of yourself. And so it's almost like this teeter-totter of, because people are building their own brand, they feel a little bit more confident to be like, okay, this is my thing. Here it is, world. That's great. There's some bravery in that.
Yeah.
But then if that becomes your measure of success or your measure of competency, then you're really isolating, right? And you're not living out that, because I know both of you have you have honed your craft with people, not alone. Like you've practiced alone.
Yeah.
But you've honed the craft really with having to kind of be humbled and, have those. And I know me, just like with speaking gigs and book stuff and counseling, like I've had many moments where I've been like, well, definitely not going to do that again, or just really felt like messy all over it. But those are the moments that make you stronger to be able to step into bigger things of like, oh man, this is next level stuff. Kind of a little nervous about it, but you're almost like, let's go. Like, this is exciting, because I've fallen so many times and been humbled that it's like, I know I got this. And I think that that's that internal resiliency as well. But I think that, really what you're talking about, what I'm hearing is that balance is just so key, not only in your life facets, but in your craft, balancing your approach to learning it and being in community with it and letting that be kind of the stability that helps you continue growing.
Yeah. And you were saying when you fell, it was that stuff that was in real time.
Yeah.
That wasn't an edited Instagram post.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you fell in real time. And then the more you do that, and then hopefully when it comes to TED Talk time, you nail it,
Yes.
Right.
And the same way we feel about being performers,
Yeah.
But we can't just make these edits of ourselves on Instagram all the time and let that be what the world sees.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just not real life. And I get people sending me stuff all the time. Check out this guy, and just somebody playing by themselves, and they might be super impressive. But I said, you know what? I really, it doesn't interest me that much until I see this person perform
In real time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I see him perform, and then I see him.
So
Can he
good.
keep the gig?
Right.
Are these?
You are saying, Craig, you are speaking.
Yeah.
It.
Can he hang in a van? Can he hang in a bus? Can he travel with these people? There's 22 more hours of the day,
Right.
and our friendships that we have in the music business, especially, is like, it comes from all that other time,
Right.
not just the playing.
Yeah.
And that's why I know people that are really, really talented, just blow me away as far as chops and all this stuff, but some of them don't last, So I can't be that. I can speak up for them. I can say, this guy's so cool. He does this cool stuff. And then they could be the most flashy player. And then I recommend him for a gig. And then the piano player goes, I said, wasn't he great? And he's like, yeah. He's like, but it didn't groove.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's like, you can't,
So
there's
good.
feel, there's intuition, there's the hang, there's all this stuff that you can't really teach anybody.
She's speaking it.
Yeah. And
that real time translates. That real time performance and grooving and other things translates into relationships. It's 22 hours. I love that. You like the 22 hours outside of the show is where you build really so much of what enables you to continue doing your craft. And I think that is just so massive.
And I think that's like the shift of it. You're speaking like knowledge. So amazing. Like, we got a bunch of people who are talented.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the gig, just because you're talented doesn't mean you actually know.
And that
how
goes
to,
back to like the trophy thing you were talking about too.
Like everybody wins. Just because you can sing by yourself in a garage that's amazing is different from a full band, reading the band, fitting in, or blending with the vocals, blending with everybody instead of like being so loud and running all over the place or screamo or whatever you're doing. Can you blend? Can you be a part of something? It's all balance. And that's kind of like what I'm seeing is like, no. Can you stand in front of 500,000 people and or even 30,000 people and know how to control the room and know how to create a story and know how to be a leader and not act a fool. And like, what are you saying? What are you doing? No, I love that you said that, because it's much more than being talented and being seen. Like, there's this relationship, there's this thing like where your name is on it. When you tell somebody something, it's like, have this guy, take this guy. They don't understand. Well, why didn't I get the gig? I can play the cello. It's like, man, it's much. What I was told was, you go figure that out. When you figure that out, come back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it took you a couple years to figure it out, man. Definitely. And then you're like, oh, that process is so important. Yeah. And I feel like that process is just not there anymore.
You got to be, you have to go up against things. And and having, say, like, me being a drummer, I'm very supportive of anybody that plays. Yeah. And I see the good in everybody.
Yep.
And I see a guy that can do this and that. And I'll stick up, even drummers that I'm not really like into their music, or, I still see like what they're good at. Right. I still see their little thing, and I think it's valuable towards something. But so I might be the wrong guy, or another drummer might be the wrong guy to tell me what I'm doing wrong. But a guitar player, bass player will tell me the truth right away. They'll be like, man, lay off that kick drum. Yeah. I got it. It's like, you don't have to play all the eighth notes. I got it here. Yeah. It really, and so that's how I grew up. It was always that, like, usually another band member who obviously didn't play the drums. But all my drummer friends are like, yeah, man, go, go, go. And they weren't going to tell me if I was kind of not doing that well. Right. They're just always encouraging, Right. The musician, just, they have no patience, and they'll nicely tell you, but they'll just be like, that's not working. That's because you're in an ensemble situation. Right. And that's when you just have to do it. That's when you're on a team. Yeah. So I had a thick skin for that too, just playing sports, at a young age. Like, I knew my role. I knew I wasn't going to be, I was a defensive end. I wasn't, I wasn't a running back. I wasn't a quarterback. Yeah. I was relatively at a good height, and I was really skinny back then. So I could run fast. So they were going to throw me there. Yeah. I was too small. I didn't want to get crushed on the line, and I wasn't good enough to be, a running back, and I couldn't catch as well, So you just learn your role as it is. And I would have loved to had more of the glory of being on the offensive end and stuff like that, because those are all your heroes you watch on TV. Right. Nobody talks about the defensive end. They talk about running backs and quarterbacks, Yeah. So those were those are the things you just really learn. That you're like, I'm cool with this. Like it's okay that, I don't need to stand out. Somebody tell me how I can be that cog in the wheel. Yeah. Right. The best, and I'm fine with it. And no matter how high profile or low profile your role is in something, at the end of the day, that applause is for you too. That's good. When I'm on stage and the audience gives a good applause, that's for the light guy. Yeah. Yeah. That's for the technicians backstage. That's for the sound guy. That applause is for everybody. It's not just one or two people.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many elements that go into it. And once you learn that, then you would never want to go back to just being a guy showing off on Instagram.
Right.
Once you get into that,
so good. Craig.
Once you get into that world, it doesn't mean that much. You're like, no, it feels better to belong to something bigger than to be just my own brand.
Oh, that speaks.
That is so powerful.
In life, it's so, we are
so many levels.
Craig, man, gosh, that is hitting me right.
I love that. It's like we all have a role to play. Yeah. And the
applause is for everybody.
And I love, even way earlier when you were telling us about growing up and putting the boxes and, doing your drum set at home. And, you had said something.
I threw those away.
But you said something, how you said, I loved making music And that when you were talking about your passion, you were talking about I love making music. And so even that, like your passion, like you love the drums because you see how it's a part of what makes the music. Like from what I was hearing, it's like, okay, your passion is the music that is made from your role of a drummer.
Yeah, yeah.
And you love doing that in your drumming, and that's what really gets your gets you going in that. But where that fits into the bigger picture is really what drives that passion, because you see what it creates. And I think so much of what we're saying is when we get so egocentrically stuck and saying like, I love what I do because of the thing, then we cap we limit our ability to produce and create amazing things. And the music in life that we don't create because we stop at our thing, because that's what success is doing our thing and being seen in our thing.
Yeah.
Like, man, what we're leaving on the table.
Yeah. And I think that the why I get so excited about what you said is because what you said, it extends to life.
Yeah.
Not just music. And we see that to where the applause of the success of your life, of where you got, is not just for you. You didn't just get there. There was people surrounding you, we've supported each other. No one has gotten wherever they gotten on their own.
Yeah.
And so, hey, especially in, we see it in the church as well. Like, the focus of, we see it in the whole world.
Yeah.
We see it in the planet with the focus of it's just me, 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 me. And there's like no, it's like this applause. That's why I just really appreciate you and who you are, because that's so massive. That just speaks life into me about, man, makes me think of my life. I already feel that way, but that's what we're supposed to be going after. That's what we need to be teaching these young people. Yeah. That's what we need to be like going after. Like, hey, it's a community that helps you. Even when you feel like you're alone, you still don't do it on your own. It's a community. Somebody that you don't know is working for you, that you can turn your lights on, that you can flush your toilet, that you can go to the grocery store and buy food, that you can be in somewhat of a system, even however faulty it is, it's in a system. Like always there is family, there is somebody, there is an applause. You don't get there on your own. And I do agree with you. When you have that mindset, man, that is success, and you win.
Yeah. And it is sad if some people just either lost the plot or just don't know to kind of think that way, you know, in a broad sense. Like, you go to the grocery store, somebody's turning on the lights for you. I mean, that, I think, I think playing music, there's been a lot of benefit. Yeah. As far as community, as far as keeping an open mind. Yeah. I mean, I've been in bands like, or just, you get all walks of life. I've been in bands where I was 15 and somebody else was 27 at the time. Or, there was a millionaire in the band, and then there was a guy who was down on his luck on drugs or something. Like, and we're all in the same thing. We're all in the same, like, we're all just making it work. And so instead of like, if you just had some corporate job and you're just hanging around in your khakis and everybody does the same thing and goes to TGI Fridays all the time, like that's a life you choose. And maybe there's some comfort in that. Yeah, and maybe some people have they find diversity in some of it, and they have a good, but the stereotype for me is that sounds like I might, land in a closed-minded environment, right? Where, and I've always said that about music. I'm like, if I don't make $1 at this, I feel like I've grown past maybe, for a few years I always lived in cities, but I lived in this suburban town for a little while. And I can tell now that I'm grown up that some of these people who are wonderful people, but some of them have really stayed closed-minded. I mean, they're really kind of stuck in something. Yeah. They're not very worldly. And I said, if that's the one thing that music did for me, just the adventure of it and just the huge community and just all kinds of different people I've met of all ages, and maybe I would have gotten lucky with another job, or maybe that was just my nature to be that kind of person. But I don't know. I really think this journey, just like, wow, like, and then getting to another level, and making it a vocation and making it like, hey, I've gotten to see a lot of places that I wouldn't have been able to afford to go to.
Right.
Australia or something like that, like that's great, and I'm working. It's not like a vacation, but just to have those experiences and then open my mind to that stuff, like what's going on here in this play and what are the people like and what is it politically like over here? And, you bring all that experience home to you, then you just, you look at the world so differently, so if anything, it's that's what I hope is not lost on people today who kind of have this single notion, or maybe they were locked in, when I was younger, video games weren't that awesome. Yeah. And I'm kind of glad they weren't, because I probably would have gotten addicted to them and just stuck and stayed in my house more and stuff like that, But, you could only play Super Mario Brothers for so long. You want to go outside. You want to go outside and play. Space Invaders only went so far. But had it been, had I grown up, because I was really into stuff, I was a real comic book kid and all that kind of stuff, and into games, but like I said, they were kind of lame back then. So, I was more into the physical community and riding my bike and stuff like that, and engaging stuff. So I don't know. And it was just a different world, it was a safer world, it's just, or we thought it was, and, my parents never took me trick or treating. It was like, even when I was 8 years old, I just like helped myself, walked around. Now I can't even think of that now, So it was just a different world, and I hope that that would be really discouraging to kids if maybe they don't notice that you need a community of that kind of thing. And
I agree.
I tell younger students now, I'm just like, I said, I never hear you talk about like drummers, they never talk about their bass player buddy or their guitar buddy. And I tell them, I said, look, I've been around musicians so much in my life. Like I know so much about guitar tubes and things I don't need to know about at all. But I've been around the opposing people, not just sitting around with a bunch of drummers. I know musicians, I know, and that's what makes me a good team player and stuff like that, because I'm always around those people. A lot of people are just kind of like in their singular kind of world, and they're like, well, I don't have a band now, but I'll just, I'm going to play on Instagram and hopefully somebody will notice me. Yeah. Oh, great. Maybe somebody will notice you, and then you'll get into an ensemble situation. They'll be like, man, this guy can't hang. Yeah. He doesn't, he's kind of like, doesn't have the social skills, or he doesn't have experience from starting a band in the garage, and he doesn't have a communal kind of like,
wow, that's so huge.
Thing for anything. And, so that's a real shame if they are losing that thing that we probably just took for granted as a kid, that we were just, we knew we were just drawn to that. Yeah. But the world is so different now that it might be pushing some of these people away and discouraging them to give themselves into a community too much, or, they just might be, there might be, reasons that they just kind of want to be more self-centered, self-absorbed.
Yeah. No, that's so good. So with it being this different world that we're living in, right? And what you're saying, I think probably we're close to wrap time anyway. Yeah. And so what would be like a good send off, just encouragement, but kind of just what all we've talked about, but what would be like a good kind of just send off for our listeners?
Well, as far as, because we've mainly been talking about passion and like, sticking to your guns and doing that kind of stuff. My wife recently read a book, I think it's Elizabeth Gilbert book, or whoever wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, yeah.
So she has this newer book that leads up to her success of being a writer. And she really encourages people to all the stuff we've been talking about today. No matter what you have to do, you have to supplement, but keep your passion going. You know, and then that, my wife's been running her own business, but it's been a lot of pressure. And then, so she's taken some other jobs on the side that are places she was volunteering for. And again, community. And these two places created jobs for my wife because they knew her passion in it. But she's able to have this steady money. And then that takes the pressure off her getting her business going. And she really was inspired by this book.
I love that.
So, you know, if that's a send-off thing, it's like, keep that passion going, because there's examples of things that no matter what you got to do, you know, on the side or, you know, just keep it going. Don't give it up. And it relates to the same thing. Don't sell everything in your apartment. Do something on the side so you can keep that stuff that you're going to need to buy again in 10 years. Because I feel the same way about people that quit their passion. Just like selling that stuff, don't sell yourself. You're going to need to buy that stuff back.
Ooh,
you know, you're going to need to do that. So
don't sell yourself.
Nobody's keeping score.
That's
you know,
great, Craig.
you know, nobody's keeping score of what you're doing. You know, and nobody, if somebody says, you know, it's like, it's not working out and I'm doing this on the side, I hear it all the time. Like, I'm like, cool. You know, you're being proactive. You're being responsible because you want to keep your thing going, not because you're quitting your thing. So there's two ways of looking at it. You know,
That's so good.
There's a lot of hours in the week.
I love it so much. And just a shout out, this piece on our table is for all of you local Portland people. Poppy and Finch is her boutique, and she does amazing potting and
does.
Incredible, beautiful things.
PoppyandFinch.com.
Yeah, poppyandfinch.com.
She's amazing.
Yeah,
we can't wait to have her on here too.
I know we were going to, just didn't work out this time. But next round we will definitely have her. She's got that entrepreneurial spirit.
I'll keep the seat warm for her.
Yeah. No, but that was really amazing, Craig, what you said.
Thank
And I
you
love
so much.
just don't sell yourself, because you're gonna have to buy yourself back anyway. So
Right.
just keep that passion alive is what I'm hearing.
And it's great to talk about it because you
Absolutely.
revisit yourself
Oh, me too. I
and
just
what
love this.
what you I take for granted every day, the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, you know. So
Absolutely.
it's just good to talk to people. And I know when I talked to you last week, you said, you know, when you guys talk, you're like, wow, we were just on the phone for an hour. Like, this would have been an interesting.
Yeah.
And I have friends like that too. We actually have done a couple little like Instagram, just quick.
Yeah.
I said, you know, we might talk about our favorite album or favorite movie or something like that. And I'm like, why aren't we recording? You know, like, you know, and we just, I listen to podcasts all the time, and it could be the most random stuff, you know, and improv, you know, like this, just unrehearsed and just whatever comes up, like a conversation. I think the world needs that, you know. I think that's what we're thirsty for.
Absolutely.
Some kind of raw, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't put up make on. I didn't even know I was on camera. Just keep it raw. You know?
No, we are so grateful that you've been here with us.
Thank you
That's
so
great.
much,
Like,
Craig.
just such. I know our listeners are going to love this episode. I'm just really grateful to just spend some time with you two talking. So, yeah.
Craig McIntyre, everybody.
Yes, Craig McIntyre.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Check out the tour days. Goo Goo Dolls. They're doing a
Goo Goo Dolls are
States tour.
playing everywhere.
Yeah. Check them out.
all over.
Everywhere. We'll play the opening of an envelope.
Everywhere. Everywhere. Yeah. Well, family, I am Sharif Aman.
I'm Jenna Barbosa.
And this is Love Speak Revolution.
Love meets you where you're at.
Yes, it does.
We'll see you
Take
next
care.
time.